This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome. I'm your host, Robert, and my guest today is Mix Bel Morrigan. Bel is the host of the Fishnets and Philosophy podcast. Welcome to the show, Bel.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to jump into the Creepy and Geeky show. I've had you onto my own show twice now, so it's nice to return the favor and jump your way. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, I've wanted to get you on, and we're going to talk some Kevin Smith today. We're talking Jersey Girl and Zack and Miri Make a Porno, which are two of his, I wouldn't say lesser known, but definitely underrated. And they're not part of the Views universe, his interconnected world. And so these are a little bit more of the side things, but I think that they're both really good. And Jersey Girl itself is one of my favorites of his particularly. So
yeah, no, I think you're right when you're saying that it's not. I think when people think Kevin Smith, there's other films that come to mind. Right. So I think these ones are definitely more the under the radar ones. Like, for me, whenever I usually think of like Kevin Smith, I think is more kind of like, Tusk, or even, what's it? Yoga hosers, and like those kind of like just slapstick kind of splatter films, which like I love those ones. But then also like, you got the Clerks ones, and then Jay and Silent Bob, all those ones, the ones that are like, oh, that's Kevin Smith. So I think people forget that he also branched out into like not those type of films.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting to kind of touch on his lesser talked about ones.
Yeah. It's like he tried to do, like he went through his Views universe up till like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and then he's like, okay, let me do a couple of comedies that are a little bit outside of that zone. They're similar, but not necessarily in. There's no Jay and Silent Bob. There's no recurring characters from any of the other movies. The actors are still there. He's got Ben Affleck and George Carlin, and Jeff Anderson is in Zack and Miri and stuff, but he branched out by getting different leads and some different characters and stuff. So it's definitely a much, and I think it was kind of a test to before he really dove into, doing the horror side of things that he did with Red State and Tusk and everything. So, I think he just wanted to branch out and get away from Jay and Silent Bob a little bit, especially because I know that that was during the time that Jason Mewes was having a lot of substance abuse problems and everything. So
okay, so yeah, that I guess that makes sense then in a way of his filming buddy, his work buddy was not as available. So yeah, like branched another direction. But yeah, so you're the one that has me on. So which
why don't we start with Jersey Girl?
Perfect. Okay, that's fantastic. As I was saying just before we hit recording, I literally think I have like the last 10 to 15 minutes of the film left, and it's my very first time watching it. So I'm excited to finish those last few minutes afterwards. But I can tell the direction it's going to go, because it is like, even though you can tell it's kind of got Kevin Smith throughout it, it kind of you can tell it has his touch. But it's also, it's a romantic comedy-esque type genre film. So it follows a lot of those kind of beats. So I can kind of tell what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes without seeing it. But I'm enjoying what I've watched so far.
Good.
I think Ben Affleck, he's really enjoyable in it. Like, I don't know, Ben Affleck's one of those actors where it's 50-50 if I'm going to enjoy him in a movie. Sometimes he really carries it and he's really charismatic and really good, and then other times he's just like really wooden, and I never know what Ben Affleck I'm gonna get. But I like the Ben
Right.
Affleck in Jersey Girl. And also it's got Liv Tyler, one of my favorites. She's just gorgeous as always, and yeah, she just brings a nice brevity to the film. And also as well, like you mentioned earlier, but George Carlin, I didn't know that he did a lot of work
Yeah.
with Kevin Smith, so kind of seeing him and like just playing himself basically like is
A
just
version,
really
yeah.
a version of
Yeah.
himself. Like
Yeah.
it's just really fun. But
No, it's
yeah.
definitely a much meatier role for George Carlin. And Ben Affleck, I kind of have it's not a theory, but I like him more in smaller movies, the stuff that he does for Kevin Smith, and
Mm,
more like when he tries to play the hero role in the big budget action flicks and stuff like that. I think
mm,
that's where he gets more wooden because he doesn't do that kind of, like, there are some actors who can definitely do that kind of movie and do it really well and put a lot of passion and stuff into it. And I think that Ben Affleck really likes doing that stuff, but I just don't think he's that kind of an actor. He doesn't put in
yeah.
the right attention to it. I mean, I think he's a great actor, but I think he's much better in the much more subdued roles, the much, not necessarily subdued, but the more dramatic and the smaller stuff. Good Will Hunting, the work that he's done with here, Gone Girl, that kind of stuff, that where he, and some of his other movies like Argo,
Oh
and The
yeah.
Town, the stuff that he's directed. I think he's really good in that stuff. The hero stuff, Daredevil, Batman, that kind of stuff just
Mm,
does not. Armageddon, which is another movie where him and Liv Tyler are a couple. That one rings so hollow compared to what we see in Jersey Girl. Jersey Girl, there's a much better dynamic between them that I think it's more natural and it grows, rather than jumping right into it like we do in Armageddon. So I think that, yeah, I love their growth as a couple. Uh,
yeah.
but as a movie itself, like this movie hits me so hard because, like, I've never had anybody to close to me die like that or anything, but it
Mm,
just, you can feel that, like, Kevin Smith just hit the right beats on that, to
yeah.
make you feel for him. So
Oh, for sure. Like it was, and like even the fact that like the brief introductions you'd had to, his character up to this point, he was a dick. He was an asshole of a
yeah.
character. That's what he was. But even at that particular scene was directed and shot so well that even though he was an asshole and a dick, you still felt the emotion for it. So
Right.
yeah, I think they carried off that scene pretty well. But watching it though, you can tell, like, and this is the thing, like, I think so many films, it's just unfortunate they fall victim to it, of the fact that they fall victim to, you can tell that this film was an early 2000s film, in the
Right.
sense that like before, like before Jennifer Lopez's character dies after childbirth.
Yeah.
There's that one bit where she's like, pregnant and they're about to go out to the VMAs and stuff like that. And there's just that entire sequence where she's like basically, talking about how fat and ugly she is and all this type of stuff. And she's like, why can't
Right.
I be skinny? And he's like, oh, they're just skinny because they're coked out whores. And she's like, I
Yeah.
want to be a coked out whore too. And it's like, I know what they're doing. They're playing it that she's obviously very emotional. She doesn't like that her
Right.
body is changed, which, yeah, that's fair. That happens all the time. But I
Yeah.
think there's a way to tell, like, to show that emotional, like, state of being without making easy fat jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know, I think I'm just at this point now where I'm just like fed up with lazy fat jokes, like, as
Yeah.
in, like,
Yeah.
if I see it in a comedy film, I'm just like, that writer was just lazy. Like, that type
Right.
of material is like bottom of the barrel. It's something that unfortunately is going to get a lot of people laughing at it, because at
Right.
this point in society, we still aren't, we still don't respect fat people. They're still the butt of
Right.
most jokes. So I don't know, like that bit kind of like at the start of the film, that was only like the first kind of 15-20 minutes in, if no,
Right.
not even that, less. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be enjoying this because of those jokes. But
Right.
then the film won me over because I don't know, just the story is just filled with so much heart. So,
Yes.
but that was kind of one of my little gripes. I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
like, and like, part of me is thinking, oh, well, it's just an early 2000s thing. But then no, it's not the case. We still have comedy
Hmm.
films and films in 2022 that are using fat people as the butt of jokes. And
Right.
I don't know. I'm just like, I'm fed up with that as a thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
It's
I want
it's
to.
time to it's time to move past that for sure. Like, we can make jokes about people without making jokes about their weight. We can move past that.
Exactly.
It
And
doesn't
like
need to be the center of it anymore.
100%. And also, like, there's a way to make, there's a way to kind of be humorful without being mean or cruel. And I think that's the subtle thing. You can tell who are good comedic writers, the ones that know how
Yeah.
to kind of balance that line, and the ones who are just like, oh no, fat people are ugly. It's just like,
Right.
oh well, no, you're just a dick. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I want to know what you like about watching this film. Like, do you feel that there were other elements that made it feel like dated time wise, or what are your feelings of it? Because it's a film, as you said, that you enjoyed a lot.
Yeah. So I think that, like, what I enjoy about it is like I said, it's very full of a lot of comedy. I think it's an interesting time capsule as well too, because it's right around the time that Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck were together the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And all the super amounts of media attention that they had. They were the original Benifer, and
Yeah.
they had all of this swirling around them. They'd already done Geely together, which was a terrible movie and didn't do well. And then they did this movie, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, not another one!" And but they were still they were still together. And I think it's interesting that after all these years, 20 some odd years later, they're back together again, and like that love or whatever that they had together then rekindled, and they were able to make it work even better this time. They've both grown and changed and done whatever work they've needed to do to make it work with each other. And so I find that an interesting piece to see them together in a movie, and then to fast forward all this time. But I think I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that I found problematic. Kevin Smith's movies, as he's gone along, he's gotten less and less problematic. The early movies, especially, there's a lot of stuff that's sometimes problematic, sometimes just a factor of its time period, and wasn't necessarily problematic, but just a product of being in the 90s.
Yeah.
This movie's actually not too bad with that. Being I think this one came out in 2000, 2001, somewhere around there.
It was 2004. 2004 was when this
2004,
one
even
came.
better.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, so early 2000s, we've got some obviously early 2000s ish stuff. I think it's interesting that Jason Biggs is a huge name on the box art and everything, and he's on it, but he's barely in the movie. And it shows just how big of a star he was at the time post American Pie.
Oh, totally.
That we get, he gets this major, like, push on his name and the image when he's barely in it. But again, I think that's there's a lot that goes into this. We get a cameo from Will Smith, that
one of
at the
the
time
best scenes of this film. I just like, I don't know, I think that scene was also one of the ones where I was like, okay, this movie has won me over, because this is just it was just so well done.
Scene or the later scene? The scene
Uh,
actually with Will Smith, or the one
that
about
scene
Will Smith?
actually with him, the one with him. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely, not the one earlier. That was like, but also like that was also in a different way. That was kind of like, you know what? I can respect that, wanting to tell everyone that you think is a dick, that they're
Yeah.
dicks. Like, I can
Yeah.
respect that. It didn't necessarily end well for him, but I can respect
No.
it. But no, the scene with Will Smith in it was
Yeah.
just so well done. The and I think it's that's the thing as well. Like, I think because of the usually the types of movies that he tends to do, you kind of forget that Ben Affleck does actually have kind of good comic timing. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
that scene was a really good kind of portrayal of that, like just his
Right.
reactions of realizing, oh shit, I'm sitting beside. Oh, it was so well pulled off. It was really good. I really liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, like I think the early kind of like the fat joke bits, like I think they were the only bits that like were, quote unquote, maybe like considered problematic or just,
Right.
untasteful. But there was other bits where it was like just kind of like not necessarily like a criticism of the film or necessarily even of the writing, but more just kind of, I guess, of general society or rom-coms that kind of
Right.
touches on it. But I don't know, there was just so much of the stuff of like, the whole things of like the lines about, only, married girls, like kind of show like those kind of commentary on relationships, or
Right.
I guess just on kind of just like masculinity and feminine, like to kind of create, it was like
Right.
reinforcing those kind of like roles of the
Gender roles. Yeah.
gender roles and the gender binary, and also reinforcing kind of like stereotypical monogamy and all these different types of
Right.
things, which, like, rom-coms, that's what they do, they go that route.
Right.
Like, I'm yet to see a rom-com that's about like a polyamorous couple that dates everyone. Like, I'm just like, when they make that rom-com, I will be front and
That'll
center
be an
to see
interesting.
that.
That'll be interesting when we finally do get something like that. I feel like it'll be here eventually, but
It should be.
but yeah, it's. I think that it's still, polyamory is one of those things that I think is still on the edges of society.
Oh,
It's
totally.
trickling in, but it's one of those things that people are not fully comfortable with yet.
Exactly.
And fully want to, like, sure, the polyamory people are like totally up for that, but the people who are outside of that dynamic are just kind of like, yeah, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, which is
So
like, when you think about it, it's kind of like, you could make the same argument for, seeing, like, in this like brief mini tangent, but like, you can make the same kind of arguments about, the fact that thankfully we are getting more and more rom-coms that are about diverse, like, sexual relationships. So rom-coms
right,
that are about gay men or about lesbians or
right,
bisexual people, and that's fantastic. The more diverse rom-coms, the better.
yeah,
But there are people who go, oh, I don't want to see that, and it's just like,
right,
well, maybe if you looked at it from the other perspective, that queer people have had to watch movies about straight
right,
people for time immemorium. So,
right,
getting, maybe you could actually kind of open your, palette a bit and be like, you know
right.
what, I'll watch things that are not necessarily my own lived experience, and I might have a good time. So
Yeah,
yeah, I do think that, yeah, there's a lot of trepidation or misunderstanding around what polyamory is, and that's why people
right,
are like, oh, I don't know if I want to see that. And
yeah.
I'm just like, if people were more open to seeing things that they don't necessarily understand, they'd learn more and they would, yeah,
Right.
I just think people should be more
Well,
open about what they want to watch.
yeah. And I think even on top of that, even if it's something you don't want to watch, like, it's fine. That's fine if you don't
Yeah,
want to watch that. Let it exist so that the people who do want to watch it can watch it. Like, I'll
exactly.
admit, I'm not the biggest person who's going to go in and go see a gay male romance. That's not up my alley. That's fine. I'm okay with that, but I'm okay with it existing. Like,
Yeah,
I want that out there for anybody who wants to see that, because
exactly.
I'm not the target audience. Don't always pander to me. I'm, like I said before, I'm a white male. Like, I have enough shit out there for me. Show, like, put other stuff out there, even if it's not something I'm going to watch. There's so much there's so many venues now beyond theatrical. We have all the streaming and everything else.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities to show something that's not the goddamn white male perspective. And like, I'm
Yes.
tired of always seeing that. Like, I don't, like, even myself, like, I don't even want to see that all the time. And so I wanted to be able to see other things. And even if I don't want to watch it, I want it to exist for other people. There's tons of like perspectives out there. And I want everybody to have their perspective shown out there so that when I do want to watch something like that, I can go back and go, okay, you know what? I actually do want to go see this movie now. And I can actually watch it because it exists rather than having something that doesn't exist. And then I can't even watch it when I do want to watch it.
Exactly, 100%. And it's like, it's the whole thing of like, just because this thing is out there isn't like, a threat to your existence as a person. Like, oh yeah, it's just, I could like rant all day about people who have shitty opinions when it comes to films and or TV, or just culture in general. But no, like, I've really enjoyed lots of elements of what Jersey Girl was doing. I thought George Carlin's character, I just loved him.
Oh my God, he's like, I'm a huge George Carlin fan. I have been even before, like I like right around the time that I discovered Kevin Smith was right around the time I also discovered George Carlin. And like, I love George Carlin. I've always loved his comedy since then. And, having him be a part of Kevin Smith's world was excellent. And this was such a good role for him. It was much bigger than his other roles that he'd done for him. And, getting to see him actually, in a movie for once and have him, hopefully having fun with it and everything was just, for me, it was a treat. So.
Oh, totally. And I think like, it was nice to see, like, it was almost like, I guess, a subversion of the fact that, you'd almost expect this like older white man to kind of be, I don't know, like very kind of traditional or like not representative of good parenting or good, positive masculinity. But no, he was like genuinely like, he was like the one that got his kid to get his act together because he was like, you're a shit father. Like, like literally like. And yeah, it was just nice to see him in this role. And I loved his character. I thought he just leapt off the page. Like he felt real. He felt like a real person. It didn't just feel like this is a movie character. Like it felt like, oh yeah, this seems like it's a person that exists in the world. And yeah, and then the Gertie, the daughter, I think she's just
she was excellent. Yeah.
So good. And again, like I think, a lot of the times young like kid actors can be what like shoots a film in the foot and kind of stops it from kind of succeeding, because like
they're either terrible or they're too precocious or like super hammy.
Exactly. It's rare to kind of get that sweet spot, and I think she just does perfectly in this one. And there's just there were just so many elements of it that were fantastic, and I just loved her in this. And like, just there was that one scene which it was just like it was like having your heart ripped out of your chest and stood on. That one, like when it's like, the dad is all excited about getting the interview and wanting to go back to New York City, and he just like has that one line of like, oh well, I hate you too, you and your mother took my life away from me. And you can tell, like, you see the reactions of everyone downstairs hearing that being shouted, and then you just see her little face like just broken, like, and then you see him react and realize what the fuck he just said. And I don't like that scene was so gut-wrenching, and like it was literally like, oh god, that was so tough, because like it was acted so well, but also it just like it felt so real too, because how many times do people who haven't like particularly, and again maybe this is another good example, but like, so many times the way our patriarchal cis heteronormative society is designed is it tells men that they're not allowed to feel their emotions, they're not allowed to be emotional, they're not able to communicate what they're actually feeling. So all it does is it comes out in bouts of rage.
Yeah.
And that felt real. I think everyone can
Yeah.
relate to having someone in this moment of just rage yell something that they clearly do not intend. It's just
Right.
everything builds up.
Everything built
And
up. Yeah.
that's what it is. And I like, it's just, I thought that just felt really real. And maybe that's why it was also heart-wrenching, because it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
I can just I can remember being in moments like that. And it's just,
Yeah.
oh, but yeah,
Yeah.
that scene. And I don't know, it just showed that I think Kevin Smith films kind of get a, I don't know, they get a bad
Hmm.
rap. Like, I think
They
a lot of
do.
people, yeah, like, I don't know, he's one of those directors that people kind of go, oh, Kevin Smith, yeah, like they don't really rate
Yeah.
him. And I don't know, I think this
Right.
film is really good. I really
No,
like it.
it is really one of my favorites, and it's very emotional. It's very, it gets, and for me, like watching it this, it's been a long while since I've watched it, and watching it this time, I'm older now. My kids still live with me, but they're both adults.
Yeah.
And my son actually went away for a little bit, got married, and just had a
Oh,
baby just before they moved back in with us. And so, having my son and my grandson in the house, it was kind of like one of those things where it was like it hit me on a deeper level than it did
mm,
last time. Because last time I was just a dad, with younger
yeah,
kids, and now, and then I could kind of relate to it in a little way. I didn't lose my wife, thankfully, but
mm,
but I can relate to those frustrations of being a dad sometimes, and wanting to be able to do something you can't, but you have the responsibilities of being a dad. And so, now as the grandfather, I could be more the George Carlin, and I can, I can relate to that a little bit more, and I can help steer my own son in good ways, to also be a better father, and not make any of the mistakes that I might have made with him. I like to
yeah,
think that I haven't made very many mistakes, but I know I did make some. So it's that one of those things where you always want, you always want your kids to be better than you were.
mm-hmm.
At least a good parent wants that for their
Yeah,
child, is to be
100%.
better
Yep.
than me. I don't, like, I know that I'm, like, not always the best person, and I want him to be better than me, and I want my grandson to be better than him, and to
Yep.
just keep passing that along until we get good people in this world. And so it's so for me, this movie hit me even deeper this time. And it's, and I'll admit I cried, this time,
Oh, yeah.
because it hits you so deep, especially if you have those relationships with your father, or your, or even whatever parent you have.
Yeah.
You have those relationships, and you've been there, and so it's a nice bit of catharsis and everything. And that, again, Kevin Smith gets bad rap because he's just the dick and fart joke guy, but he's Jay and Silent Bob, Snoochie Boochies, and everything. It's like, who
Mm,
cares? Like, he does this, but his movies, not all of them, but
yeah.
a large portion of them, have deeper meanings, deeper contexts, and he's trying to say something with these jokes, so that he's not spoon feeding you something deep. He's giving it to you in a way that you can
Yeah.
process and enjoy on your own, which I always find appealing for me, especially. So,
Yeah, no, totally. I think he's definitely like, there's a lot going on with a lot of the works that he does. Like with this film particularly, I think because of the fact that it's not what you associate with Kevin Smith, like maybe
right,
if even though you get his touches throughout with like particularly a lot of the humor and a lot of the
right,
types of like the jokes that are made, like the opening kind of bit with like, the classroom scene where they're like telling the stories
right,
of like this of their families, like, and just some of the bits that the kids say were just, this is just so Kevin Smith. This is just him,
right.
his sense of humor. And there were some of them were just go like, my mom says that my dad's eyes are brown because he's full of the teacher cuts
Yeah,
them all. And they're just like, every time my uncle comes over to play pool with my dad, my mom says the basement smells like a Cheech and Chong movie, and the kid just shrugs because he doesn't know what it means, but adults know what it means. But
right.
oh yeah, there's just so many things in it, like particularly those bits and other bits of like humor, like I love the scene where Liv Tyler's character is like getting, is interviewing Oliver for like her
Yes.
paper thing. And she's like, just basically like, how often do you masturbate and all these different things and talking about the porn he watches. And then
Right.
like, and then she's like, oh, like 2 times a day. And he's like, you're going to be giving yourself carpal tunnel. And like all this back and forth, like really kind of just funny on the edge kind of sexual humor is like so
Right.
Kevin Smith, but it's just delivered so well between the two of these actors, and they have such good
Right.
chemistry.
Right. Yeah.
And oh yeah, there's so much of this film that I loved. And then like, and then she's the bit when he's like, oh yeah, no, I haven't had sex since my wife died in 7 years, and she's immediately like,
He's like,
okay, well,
7 years.
yeah, 7 years. That's not right. That's not right.
Yeah.
We need like we're gonna go have sex now. Like it was just like, oh, but one of my brief kind of like, I love one of my favorite things I think about Kevin Smith films is how he'll throw in references to other films and stuff like that. And I loved the bit where I can't remember which exact scene it is, but it's one of the bits when they're in the video store and you just see like the camera pan across one of the aisles, and it like for a very brief moment it kind of really shows you that, hey, one of the films that's on the rack here is Scream 3. And I was just like, I love that because Jay and Silent Bob are in Scream 3. Brilliant. Yes. Oh, fantastic. I love that. Beautiful moment for us geeks to be able to like, there's a reference. I get that. Thank you. Like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme just pointing at the camera. But it was like, oh, I got that. But no, I enjoyed this movie. Like I'll finish it after our recording, and I can message you to let you know.
I should hope so.
Yeah. But no, I've enjoyed everything. So we're also literally the bit where they're at the music, like the music recital, the school show, and then it just turns out that every song
everyone's doing Cats.
Memory from Cats.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. Oh, finally a song that's not Memory from Cats. And then
it turns out to be Sweeney Todd.
Oh, but yeah,
I was like, no, that's the most wrong way to go on that direction, but it's so great. So.
Oh, I love it. There's just so much about it. It's just a great heartwarming film. Like, like elements here or there was like, you can tell this is an early 2000s film, but it doesn't like take away from the quality of the film. It's more just like brief moments of like, oh, I wish they had done this differently, or like, I'd love to see this story being told in 2022 just to see, just see if it was a little bit different. But then because it's a film that straddles the end of the 90s with the era it's taking place in, so much of the humor only works then. So like it would be a completely different film. Like we wouldn't be able to have that Will Smith scene if it was a film that was taking place in 2022, and that Will Smith scene is fucking gold. I'm just like, yes, oh, brilliant.
Yeah, the Will Smith scene would play a lot different now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, fair. You'd have to like think of like who's the equivalent of Will Smith that you could make that joke with.
Exactly.
But yeah, it would be interesting. But yeah, no, I think I'd rate it as a good film. Like, and if I was gonna like, be doing like a rating a film out of 5, I'd say it's probably like a solid like 3.5 for me. I think it's like a nice, good, enjoyable film, which I would happily like watch again. Like I had a good time with it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, no, it's definitely high up there with me in terms of Kevin Smith movies. It's his only PG-13 rated movie too. That was what was interesting. Everything else he's done has been R-rated. And so it was a nice little chance for him to kind of tone some things back and see if he could make something within that kind of structure without resorting to a lot of the more risque jokes and a lot of the language, more the language than anything else, I think. But
which like when you think about it, it's just like that really is such an American thing, that language is what's gonna give a rating a high film. It's just ridiculous. Like a film a high rating, not rating a high film. But it is so uniquely American, where it's just like, oh, lots of gratuitous violence, or that's fine, but you're gonna be swearing? Oh no, that's not allowed. We can't have that.
More than one F word. Nope, that's an R rating.
It's
cut that crap out.
Baffling to me. It's always been baffling.
It's ridiculous. the ratings thing here is a joke. It's so arbitrary, and it's just a group of moron people who get their panties in a twist anytime somebody says the F word or shows a boob. So
yeah, that's what like it's a weird type of like prudishness, and it's just Puritanism, and it's like
it's
bizarre.
so weird.
But like I lived for 3.5 ish to 4 years as a tiny child in Arizona, and like I used like yeah, but I have like vague memories of like TV at the time, and like just beeps anytime there's like a swear word on screen. It was just like there's a brief memory which like my parents have helped me reclaim, but it's like there was one time where it was like on TV one night was the Irish film The Commitments, which is a fantastic film, but it was you couldn't watch it because that film is just filled, because it's Irish, we swear all the fucking time, so that film is just beeps. There's no dialogue because
that's
it's all
the stupid thing. We as Americans curse all the fucking time too. It's like, what? Why the fuck are you beeping this shit out? Like, we all talk like this. You know?
It's so weird.
It's so dumb.
It is. It's like, really bizarre.
It's for the children. Yeah, whatever. Shut up. Your children are hearing it at school. Okay, you can't tell me that they don't hear this or worse at school from their friends.
Yeah, but I also like, it's for the children that they can't hear swear words. But like, and I say this as someone who loves my comic book hero and superhero films, but like, why is a swear word considered worse than watching like tons of people just get like obliterated or buildings fall on cities where there's clearly been countless injuries and death? Like, why is that? Like, it's just weird. I don't get it. But the fact that you mentioned, that, this was his only PG-13 film and not R-rated is a nice transition into the fact that we're talking about one of his R-rated ones, Zack and Miri.
So Zack and Miri for sure definitely goes into the hard R category there. Because it's Zack and Miri Make a Porno. And you get lots of boob and ass in this one, a lot more than pretty much more than any other Kevin Smith movie. This is definitely lots of language, lots of sex, because they're making pornos. So it's an interesting movie too, because it's he definitely brings a couple of people back. Jason Mewes is in this, not as Jay. Like, I think it's his only performance in a Kevin Smith movie where he's not Jay. And then he's I could be wrong about that. I'm sure he's played not Jay in some of his other movies, but it also brings back Jeff Anderson from the Clerks movies. I think in his only non-Clerks role in a Kevin Smith movie. And then let's see who else. Is there anybody else from any of the other movies? I don't think so. But this one's got Seth Rogen and Elizabeth Banks. Seth Rogen at the height of his 2000s fame.
Like right in the smash bang in that like pocket of like Seth Rogen is Seth Rogen. He's everywhere. He's got the messy like curly hair
and all that.
That era of like
and this should have been a huge hit for Kevin Smith. Should have been huge. That was part of the reason why he got Seth Rogen for this movie, was because he was like, okay, this will be huge, this will be my biggest movie ever. And it did not do well at all. It bombed hard. And which is sad, because it's a really good movie. Again, it takes this thing about being in a porno and lots of sex jokes and everything else, but also gives it a lot of heart again. You at the core of this, you've got a burgeoning romance this time, and it's very similar. And a thought I thought was interesting about both of these movies, Jersey Girl and Zack and Miri Make a Porno, is that both of these couples come together because of porn movies.
Nice little like a nice, like, that's how these films are connected. I like that. But like, I was watching, like, I remember I watched this film for the first time years ago. I think when it kind of like just came out, like I definitely wouldn't have been able to see it in the cinema. I would have been too young. But I think I watched it on I'm the baby.
Stop making me feel old, man.
That's like my sister was making me feel old the other day. Like, I'm turning 30 in December. I went to the cinema. I'm
gonna be 50 in less than 2 years. It's
nothing.
ridiculous.
But I was in the cinema with my sister. We were going to see Black Adam, and I was paying for our cinema snacks, and I took out my card to go like, to tap it, to go contact this. But I took out my physical card, and my sister just goes, "You're so fucking old. Why are you using your card? Why aren't you using your phone?" And I was just like, okay, thank you for making me have an existential crisis right now. Jesus. But yes, I can relate to that. But even though I'm a baby, I'm still made fun of for feeling old. So I can relate. Brief tangent over. But the first time I watched it a number of years ago, I remember having good fun with it because I was a teenager and I was obviously horny as fuck all the time. So this was a movie about a porno. So of course it was up my street. I rewatched it for this discussion only like in the last few weeks. And I don't know, I didn't have as much fun with it this time as I did the first time.
Yeah.
And
it's not as horny as you think it's gonna be. It's really not.
Yeah, no, it's not. But not even from that instance. I don't know. I think like there was just a large part of me that kind of just felt like, I don't know, it feels like this is a film from the perspective of someone who wanted to make porn. And I don't know, like, and there was other bits like, the fact that one of the characters in it, I can't remember the character's name, but she's played by a really successful adult actress, Katie Morgan. She plays one of the characters in this, like there's this kind of one of the stars of the film type thing.
Right.
And I was like, that's really cool. You're actually getting like, porn stars in it. But then the fact that none of the men in the film who were involved in the porno were also porn actors. I don't know. That didn't sit right with me. That kind of felt like, I want to make a movie about making porn where I can put like my friends on set with porn stars. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the, like, how much of my friends are sex workers, and I've like, I dabble in that world myself, and how much like I listen to Holly Randall Unfiltered, which is a fantastic podcast about, showing you that, hey, porn stars are humans too. Like, that's what her, like, I don't know, maybe because of how much I have that perspective now, I don't know, it felt like there was this kind of like a sense of like kind of a weird griminess to the film that didn't sit right with me. Now, I don't know if that's just my own perspective that I'm bringing to it, or I don't know, like it's my own lens. I don't know if it's actually present in the film for other people. I'm not sure. But yeah, like it was, other than that though, I think the film itself, like I think it works as a fun romantic comedy.
Right.
Though at the flip side, I'm just like kind of going, communicate. If these people actually communicated and told each other how they felt, this entire movie wouldn't exist. So that's why they don't.
But isn't that the crux of most romantic comedies? Like,
100%.
If people would just communicate just a little bit better, a lot of these weird little problems that they have in these movies would be solved pretty easily. But then again, they wouldn't be as much fun. So
exactly, it's like it's the weird catch-22 of like,
like I wouldn't want to watch that movie. That movie would be boring.
Exactly. Watching a nice, emotionally regulated humans who know how to talk to each other. That sounds so boring. I'd rather
plus that's completely unrealistic. Come on. Nobody's that well adjusted.
Yeah, that's probably why there is no such thing as a polyamorous rom-com, because most polyamorous people actually do that stuff, and it's hard work, but they do it. Not all of them, but a good number. So that's probably why we don't have that rom-com. But I want to know what you thought of, like, think about watching this film, Zack and Miri. Like,
I think that I to your point about not having any male porn actors in there, like I think that the course of porn may have changed since then as well, but you didn't have that many really big name outside of porn, like in the mainstream. You didn't have that many mainstream known male porn actors.
Yeah.
That you could really put into that, and people go, oh yeah. I mean, unless you're talking Ron Jeremy, and nobody wants that dude in there. So
No.
so at that time anyway, you definitely didn't want him there, and he was the only really super big name at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point that I didn't kind of think of.
So I think that's the only reason. I mean, that could be the reason, but I mean, that's where I would consider that. And at the time, you had big names at the time: Katie Morgan, Jenna Jameson. You had really big people who, I mean, even Tracy Lords, who's in the movie, is a former porn actress who turned to a regular acting career. So, and Katie Morgan tried to kind of do that. I don't think she's been as successful in turning into a regular actress. But interesting trivia note is she met her husband on the set. She's married to a man named Jim Jackman. I'm not quite sure what he had to do on the set, but he wasn't like one of the actors or anything. So she met him and married him, and as far as I'm aware, they are still married and going well. So so it's interesting to see that kind of connection be made on that kind of set. So, but I go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I like that point that you made, because I initially didn't think about that, but no, that is a very good point of and again, it's like maybe as you said, the time the film was made, but like the way society views porn and receives porn has changed drastically in the last number of years, in the sense that particularly with like the advent of social media, which wasn't at its height as it was when this film came into, as in this film, even though the premise of the film kind of starts because of a viral video of her
granny panties.
Granny panties video. Even though that's kind of like the premise of the film, it was kind of still before social media was really a proper thing as it is now. And now there's a lot of people could easily list off names of like male porn stars that they know and that are well known. Wasn't necessarily the case back then, unless you kind of like watched porn, but there wasn't any that were in the cultural zeitgeist, which there kind of are.
Well, I think even now, it's kind of like, because I honestly can't think of any off the top of my head for sure. But I mean, I don't dabble in that arena as much. But it's, I know some, but not a lot. But it's one of those things where, for you, like you said, you would be able to name off some, others might be able to name off some who are more well known, and that today that movie might be filmed differently. You might be able to get actors like that, rather than in the past where it was more female stars that were more well known, which is really funny to me too, because the way the dynamic has gone over the course of this time period, that the more well-known stars at that time were female, but they didn't have the power. The power dynamic hasn't necessarily shifted, but I feel like women today have more, because of the internet and everything, that they have more agency, more ability to do things of their own and make those names for themselves, rather than having to go into the Vivid and the Brazzers and
traditional
stuff like that.
industry.
They don't have to do all that traditional industry stuff now. They can make their OnlyFans and build up their audiences that way, and and stuff. So I think it's an interesting dynamic, how things have kind of shifted, or starting to shift anyway, towards a more where the women have more say in their careers and such.
100%. And like, I think actually that's like one of the funniest things about watching this film, because it's just like the character of like Seth Rogen's character like really is like a proper like idiot, because it's just
he's horrible in this.
Like, but also it's just kind of like, dude, you clearly don't understand how the porn, like, he's like, we're gonna make tons of money because we're making a porno, and it's like, dude, people
that's not
who
how
are
porn
in
works.
that's not how it works. They're not making like, they don't, like, the ones who might like make good money are like the women on camera and stuff like that, but like the people who direct the films and do all that type of stuff,
Yeah.
They're only making money because they're shooting multiple porn scenes
Oh,
every
yeah.
day,
Every day.
every
Yeah.
week. Like it's a
Yeah.
nonstop grind.
It's about bulk, not
Yeah.
like not about quality. It's about
Yeah,
quantity
exactly.
for them. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not just making one and then right, that's us done. We're gonna roll in the money now.
Yeah.
That's not how it works, buddy.
Yeah, they were making this. They were making this porn over the course of a week. Like regular porn studios making like what they did in like a day,
Oh, totally.
or
They do
multiple
like
per day.
yeah, they do like
So
full like 14-hour days, and that's like an
yeah,
entire like film. Like it's ridiculous. Like, but I loved how they were just like trying to do like, oh, we're gonna do like a parody film. We're also gonna do like this type of thing, that type of thing, and
the
it's just
parody.
like,
I'm sorry, the Star Wars one would have been awesome. I like that would have been so great. They had the production value in there. Everything was
oh,
great, and then it all burned down. I was like, oh man, that would have been awesome.
oh yeah, I love that was like probably Kevin Smith's way of kind of going, we could have done this, but then if we did, we probably would have had
Right.
Lucasfilm or whoever it was at the time come after us. So we're not going to commit and we're going to do something else. But there was like, yeah, it would have been really cool to actually see what would have happened.
Yes.
But yeah, no, like, no, I appreciate that clarification because yeah, I think, but also as well, it's interesting. Like this film, Zack and Miri Make a Porno, I think it could only have existed as a film at that time. Like I can't picture it. Like it isn't a film that could
No.
be made in 2022 because
No.
like the world of sex work has changed so much that so much of
Yeah.
it is the OnlyFans and the people making their own careers that even though there is still obviously the traditional industry, it's not the same as it was. Like, you know, so yeah, I definitely don't think that this film could be made now. It could only have been made in that brief pocket of time.
Yeah. And you're also not seeing a lot of sex comedies anymore. We hit like the 2010s or something like that, and then they all kind of dried up. We had that, we had the American Pie movies, we had Sex Drive, we had Euro Trip, we had this glut of them for a little while that was great, but then they all kind of dried up with this puritanical bent that everything's been going towards the last decade or so.
That's such a good point because yeah, like, and that's like it is kind of like when you think about it, like it is kind of like rather depressing, that it's just like there's been widestream puritanism that's just influencing wider culture, and it's like dictating what we can and can't see, and it's like which is why even though it's not a comedy, but I was so fucking thankful for Ty West's movie X because that was just such a big middle finger to everything that's been happening and kind of going, no, we should be making more stuff like this, but also it was made well and brilliant fucking film, but like we don't get stuff like that in the same way anymore, so it was nice to see a change. But yeah, no, I enjoyed like I definitely think of the two films, Jersey Girl would be my preference. Like I think it's a better film. Like it's a better story, it's a better film, and I don't know, it's just I don't know, there's more heart to it, I think.
Yeah. I like Zack and Miri a lot. I think it's a very good movie. I think that there's definitely some heart to it, but I think that it goes about it like, I wouldn't say it goes about it in the wrong way. It definitely does not give you Zack is definitely not a likable character in that way. It's nice that they get together at the end, but he is a terrible person for the way that he treats her and treats the whole thing. So yeah, it's not good.
Like, but that's why I'm almost thinking like, is it nice that they got together? In the sense that like he is a dick. Like he doesn't like, and I think like when you compare the two films, it makes it like it's an interesting comparison because I do think like that Zach's character from this film, like I don't know, feels very much like the prototype of like incel-y character that exists now, in the sense I don't know, like it just I got those
I would say
vibes.
to an extent, sure, but he does realize at least he
His
comes to that
shittiness.
realization at the end that he was a shitty person, that he was treating her bad, that he should have communicated better in that moment and stuff. So I think that it does redeem itself in there.
Yeah, true.
That he does have that redemption in there, but it's up until that point you're just like, good God, this guy sucks. Like
Yeah.
I get that you like her and everything, and she obviously likes you, and you guys really need to communicate.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I think that it starts going that way. And if he didn't have that realization and did not have that redemptive moment, I think that it could have turned that way for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, I don't know, part of me is still thinking, like, was it an earned redemption? I don't know. Like, but it wraps it up well in the sense that you can kind of, there has been some form of a character arc. Like, he has gone through like some kind of character changes. Like, so he does feel slightly like a more put together person at the end of the film than he does at the start of it, which is nice. So you do see him have a bit of a trajectory. But like there's another small part of me that's just like, I don't know, like, is it a believable trajectory? I don't know. Like, I don't know if, like, Zack at the start, like I don't, it doesn't feel in some ways that it is the same person that's had a change of heart. It feels like two different people. And I don't know if that's just to do with Seth Rogen and his portrayal of the character, or it's, I don't know, maybe I didn't enjoy that character. I don't know. I can't get my head, but I think
I think that's what's good though about Kevin Smith though, is that he writes characters that you can be interested in but also hate. Because that goes back to a conversation that I had with Ariel on the Clerks episode that we did, that the two leads of Clerks, they are terrible, horrible people. They are both just not people you like, but they're interesting. And so this goes back into do protagonists need to be likable? And I say no. You can have an unlikable protagonist to your movie. You can still root for them. You can still want to see something good for them, even though you don't like them. Don't
totally
root against them necessarily. So I think that's that again, I think Zack falls into that category of he's an unlikable person, but you do want to see him grow and change. And I think that's I think that's where it comes
that's a good point. And like I'd agree. Like I don't think every character has to be a likable character or protagonist, or that you have like everyone has to be golden. Like I love my villainous characters. Like I like my monstrous people, because people can be monstrous. So I do think I think that's fine. I just don't know if for this specific character, if I believed that change. Like, I don't know if there was enough to show that he has changed. Like, maybe
it did come pretty quick, because all of a sudden he leaves and they cut. It's like, what, 6 months later or something. And then all of a sudden he's had that change, and we didn't get to see that growth and that change. It's just a sudden smash cut. And so I can see where you're coming from on that.
I think that's totally. I forgot that that's the way it happened. And so that, I think that's where I'm coming from. Like, I don't know, like, because with Oliver's character in Jersey Girl, like, it's gradual.
That's earned.
It's earned. Like you see him go through everything, and that's part of the reason for like that Will Smith scene, is to show him having that realization of like, no, fuck this, I actually want to be a dad for my daughter. That's more important to me than this corporate bullshit. But you see his character change, and it's earned, and you see him go through the pitfalls and realize how you see all that. With Zack's character, yes, like as you said, there is the kind of brief moments where he kind of like, he's obviously come to some form of realization that he's been shitty, but you don't really get to see the full. It's more kind of just like, Zack is a dick, really shitty, and then he causes the entire thing to go up in flames and everyone leave him, and then it's 6 months later and he's like, I've been a terrible, like, so maybe you don't, to me it feels like the redemption wasn't earned. And now I don't know if this is to do with like the budget for the film and there was time like I don't know what went into
Yeah.
the making of the film, but I feel like if there had been a bit more runtime, or if it had been cut differently, that you actually see Zack
We'd have had a
having
redemptive arc. Yeah.
yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's why maybe I didn't enjoy the film the second time as much as I did the first time, because I was able to, I don't know, I noticed those things more than I would have been
Right.
as a horny teenager that was just happy to see
Right.
boobs and ass on screen. Like, you know, so as a teenager, this film is perfect. As like a more grown-up adult who's gone through relationships and stuff like that. Yeah,
Right.
there's elements of it that, but there is like the humor in this film though is perfect. It's golden.
Oh, yeah.
I love the humor. There's so many great moments. Like I still, it like burned into my brain from the first time I watched the film, and seeing it happen the second time, of that one bit where they're just like, they're doing like the anal scene in the coffee shop, and like the
Yes.
cameraman just gets
Splat.
like, yeah, splat, and it's just done.
Yeah.
The timing of it is just done well. It and I love Craig Robinson's character in this film. He is just like, he's just like so like pathetically brilliant. Like it's just there's just, and I just like, do I gotta see some titties? Like it's just it's just elements. Like there's lots to love for with this film.
Yeah.
I think it's just
and there's the scene with Tracy Lords, and she does the bubbles, and he and afterwards he's like, her name's Bubbles. And just Craig Robinson's delivery is so good in this. It's so great. It's just there's so many fun elements like on the comedy, you know, that are
and like one of my like again, one of the things that just randomly pops into my head all the time, but it's just the bit where I think when he goes back to the house to try and win Miri back, but it's just that one bit where Jason Mewes' character, I can't remember his character's name, but he's just doing that thing of like, if we hold each other's shoulders and hold our cocks, we can jerk each other off without touching each other. It's not gay, man. It's not gay. Like, and like part of me is kind of like, is this like an anti-gay joke? I don't know. You know what? I'm just gonna let it wash over me, because this is just so fucking ridiculous and over the top. And I'm just like, did like Kevin Smith or Jason Mewes actually do this in life? That's why they know this is a thing? Is this like something that they just stumbled across on the
feels
internet?
like something Jason's probably done.
Probably. It feels too specific for it to have been something that they just came up off the top of their heads. Someone's had to have had the lived experience with that. But that scene is so fucking funny.
It's hilarious. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
But yeah, like I think there's a lot to love with it. For me, if they had done Zack's story slightly different, I think him and Miri ending up together would have felt more like, yeah, I get that.
More
like,
earned, yeah.
Yeah, but also as well, I don't understand why Miri, the character, likes him. Like, as in, I don't, like, you know, like you're saying earlier, like, it's clear that she's into him, but they're just not I'm just like, but why? There's no, like, you know, earlier on, there is nothing for anyone to enjoy in his character. So why?
And here's the thing: like, I don't think either of them liked each other. Like, they liked each other as friends, and they were comfortable around each other because they'd been around and they'd been friends since high school and everything. I think that was the point. Was like, I think that, you know, when she saw him without the beard, like that's when she like when he shaved and came in without the beard and everything, that's when it connected with her, maybe because it reminded her of him in high school or whatever. And then it just, that, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, they were obviously friends. They were obviously very good friends, and that makes a good connection, you know? And so, you know, once the arbitrary beard thing comes off, then, you know, that's what makes her go, you know what, I really like you, you know? So
actually, that's another bit where I was just kind of like, wait, what? Like, are you just saying that all bearded people are messy slobs, and that unless you're clean shaven, you're not desirable? Like, what?
So here's a funny fact about myself. I like my beard. I like having my goatee. It's something that I like having on my face. I think I look good with it. My wife, she doesn't like it as much. She likes it when I'm clean shaven. I don't like it. So, you know, Unfortunately, she doesn't get her way on that one. I like my beard, so I'm keeping it. So
Yeah,
but she's one of those women who likes, she's somebody who really likes me clean shaven. She appreciates me being more clean shaven. So I can see that, from that perspective, that, her attraction to him is part of not having his beard. Like when he has the beard, it's not so much, she can accept it, of course, but it's not where she got attracted. And I do think that, the sex that they had played a large part into it. Like, because before then they both kind of were like feeling like they had feelings for each other.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until they had the sex that it solidified for both of them. And it was because of their relationship, because of the closeness that they've shared over all these years, I think that's where it played in more than anything else. And that's where the feelings got even more complicated, and so
that's a good point. And like, I don't know, like, again, part of me, like, because like that sequence of like, him being like bearded and kind of like, just who he was, and them just being connected as these friends. And then it's like when he gets the idea of, oh, this is what we're going to do, like, but that coincides with him shaving the beard. And like, I don't know, like, part of me, again, I'm just thinking, like, is this sending a message like that this is just what Miri thinks, or is this more sending a wider message that, someone who does have like facial hair that they're not taking care of, that they just have a because I think there is a difference. But if someone is just like doesn't give a shit about their
I didn't see it that way, so I don't know. I definitely wasn't something I thought of that was more of a, oh well, now that he's clean shaven, he's a much cleaner person. That was playing into more of a societal thing or anything like that. It could be, don't get me wrong, and I can see where you're going with that.
Yeah, this is just me being very much I analyze everything down to the barest detail, so it could just be that I'm just overthinking everything, which is probably what's happening. But like, I don't know, maybe I'm just like, it is, at the end of the day, it is like, even though, as we discussed, Kevin Smith is saying a lot of things with his films, but at the end of the day, this is a film called Zack and Miri Make a Porno, so it's probably not as fucking deep as my brain is thinking.
Don't get me wrong, I think Kevin Smith's got some deep meanings in his movies. I don't necessarily think it's that deep, but that, I'm not going to discount what you're saying though. So
yeah, like maybe that could be my own internal thinkings of like what facial hair means. I don't know. And like maybe I was watching that kind of like unpacking some past trauma of being told I need to shave my beard. I don't know. That could be the case. Who knows? But there's lots with the film that I think is good fun. The humor, I think, is like very Kevin Smith. It's very like on brand. You know what you're getting, and it's delivered well. Like, Seth Rogen is playing Seth Rogen. Like, his roles never like he never changes. Like, there might be subtle differences, but he's usually just playing a version of Seth Rogen. Like, that's what it, like, and particularly during this era. And that's fine. You know what you're getting. That's why you watch Seth Rogen film, because you're getting Seth Rogen doing Seth Rogen. And particularly this era of Seth Rogen films. I think there's like a lot to enjoy with it. But would it be a film I would return to as quickly as I would to Jersey Girl? Probably not. That's my takeaway out of these two films. Like, I definitely have like a clear favorite of the two, and that's definitely Jersey Girl.
No, I'd say definitely Jersey Girl's a high watermark for me in terms of his filmmaking. And like I said, I agree with you. I think Zack and Miri is a great movie. It's fun. But it's not one that I'm going to revisit as often. I think, honestly, I think this has only been the second time I've ever watched it. So, it's not one of those ones that I go back to. If I go back to any of his movies, I tend to go back to the Jay and Silent Bob stuff. Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, that kind of stuff for me is more the fun stuff that I enjoy out of his.
Same. And I think it's as well because like Zack and Miri Make a Porno is a very straightforward film, like, in the sense that the story is very like, it's very bare bones. Like, there's not so like there isn't much you're gaining from revisiting you know, in the sense that
Yeah.
like once you've watched it, you've watched it. It's not one of those
Right.
films that's necessarily, you know, it's not like a big kind of like, you know, deep thinking film that
Yeah.
every revisit you're picking something new. Like it's kind of like,
Yeah.
no,
There's
this
not a
is
whole
kind of,
lot of nuance in it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But like what it does well, I think it pulls off well. And, you know,
Yeah.
like I do like how, you know, the film is coming from a lens of like, you know, porn isn't something that should be like looked down upon and stuff like that.
Yes.
I like that perspective of it, even though, you know, I did have that initial takeaway of like, oh, this there's a lens that I'm not sure if I'm vibing with. Even with
Right.
that, the fact that it's not like, you know, like, because how many times are films like using again like porn as like the butt of jokes or stuff like that? And I like how
Right.
this
Yeah.
film isn't doing that. It's kind of going no, and like almost in a way, Zach's character is, you could almost like put him similar vein of thinking to what Ty West was doing with the film X and the characters
Yeah.
in X, in that they're saying no, you know, this genre of filmmaking porn, like there's a level of art to it, like, you know, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be this shitty thing that people look down on. It can actually be respected. um
Right.
Whether Zach's creative vision was something that would be well artfully made film, I don't know, but he
Yeah.
came from the right perspective.
Right. Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I think that, by presenting presenting the characters in this way and giving them that opportunity of going, okay, look, we're going to take what, because the impetus for all this was that Granny Panties video getting a huge amount of hits on whatever site it was that was randomly on there. But then so they're like, okay, well, if that got a huge amount of hits, then maybe we can make a porno and make a lot of money because we need to pay our bills.
Yeah.
And so, by doing that and going, okay, well, we're going to take the power into our own hands and, take what, presumably people are making a lot of money doing porn and making if we make a good enough porn video, then we can, make some money for ourselves and, take some power for ourselves as well. And, I do appreciate that, that they did that, and then not only did they go for that in themselves, but they were also empowering others. They they auditioned people,
Yeah.
and they just regular people, and so it was just, sure, they got pretty people to be their actors and stuff, but they were just Katie Morgan aside, her character wasn't a porn star. She was just a normal person. So, it was all just random people that they met and through these auditions and everything else. And so they just put it all together. So and that's what is good about porn and the porn industry, and and not necessarily the porn industry, because the porn industry itself can be very insular and very like, at least with the big names.
Yeah.
But anybody can make porn at this point, especially if you have OnlyFans or anything like that, you can take that and create your own and get your own. And you have to work at it. Like anybody who goes into that
because
thinking,
it's work.
oh,
it's
I don't,
a job.
yeah, it's actual work. Anybody thinking that, oh, I'm going to go into this and I'm not going to like promote it and I'm just going to hope that people, come to me and everything like that. You find out really quick that I've seen people who've said that oh, I'm going to go do this, and they don't keep on it all day every day.
Yeah.
And they don't promote it all the time. And if you don't do that, and it's hard, I've seen a lot of people who do that, and they promote it for a long time and they're doing great, and then it peters out because it burns you out. You're doing that all the time. It's literal work, and anybody that acts like sex work isn't work is a moron. Because it's more than just performing sex acts, and it's about all the stuff that goes into that. And I think that's what, in a way, this movie kind of shows that too. It's a little light on it, but it shows you, they had to work all day, and then they had to do this porn stuff at night, and they were all exhausted and could barely function, and and putting this all together. And even at the end of it, they didn't even finish it, and they had to edit what they could to finish it and to make it work. And eventually they did, but it still took a lot of work. And I think that's what's nice about this movie too, is that it does show that, and it shows that anybody can do it if they've got the material, the people, the people who want to do it, and the time and the energy to do it. If you've got all that, you can do it, and you can take it into your own hands. And that's what's great. And that's the same with any filmmaking. Like you can do this. Like that's what's great about filmmaking in general, is that if you've got enough money to do it, and you can even do it with your stupid phone nowadays. Your phone is so powerful. You can make a good movie just using that if you've got the right amount of talent and everything else, and you can put it out there. And there's so many different ways to put it out there now. You can make short films and just upload them to YouTube and start building. And that's how some people have done it. And that's great. And I love that. And that's what I love about this movie as well. Sure, it might not be the best movie, but it does show you that you can do stuff if you want to do it, and you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And it is a strong, like a nice kind of like powerful message of like, we are in this kind of time where a lot of things are, you have the control in your own hands to be able to do it. Now, obviously, a lot of times money can be the one restrictive thing, but if you're, as I said, if you've got the talent and you've got the creativity, you can work around that. Like, how many, classic, like, for example, horror films were made on shoestring budgets, but became super popular and successful because of the talent and creativity behind it. So, absolutely. Like, the people who know what they're doing are able to work with what they have. And I think what we need now to happen societally is for everyone else to kind of accept that, hey, sex work is work, and for there to be no social stigma around doing sex work. Because that's the one problem. Like, yes, everyone has the power in their hands to do with it what they want, but we are still at a point in time in history where doing sex work is considered a social negative. So if you do it, you're going to have negative consequences, which should not be the case, but it is. So it's one of those things where it's unfortunately like it's a big decision. Like you can't just be willy-nilly, oh, I want to do sex work, like without kind of thinking that there's going to be ramifications for it. And particularly in America, there's a lot of the big financial institutions and banks that are basically saying, oh, you do porn, we're going to not allow you to bank with us anymore. And I also think that that is repugnant and gross, because that's a human being that you're saying isn't allowed to have, like, make a living. Like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
And they shouldn't be allowed to make those decisions like that. I don't care what kind of bank your business you are or whatever like that. What people do with their money is their business, not your business. And it doesn't, like, just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean that you should have the right to do that. And sure, it's a private business. They can do what they want. And I get that legally. Yes, they can do that. I just, think it's ridiculous and that they shouldn't be allowed that kind of power.
Oh, I agree. Because it is kind of quite gross how much leeway a lot of these big financial institutions have over how society gets structured, but that's an entire other podcast conversation. But no, of these two films, oh, my camera went off. But of these two films, I think they're both good times. You can have fun with both of them, but I think you'll have a more enriching experience with Jersey Girl.
I agree. I think that Jersey Girl is the better movie in this duo. I think that it's heartwarming. It's got it's got a great all around cast. It hits different in a way than Zack and Miri will. Zack and Miri is a fun movie if you're looking for a good fun sex comedy that's just kind of light. Sure, go for that. But if you're looking for something that's fun, funny, heartwarming, definitely go with Jersey Girl, because it's a fun movie, and it's one of personally my favorite of Ben Affleck's performances, and everybody else in that movie is really great.
Exactly, yeah, and I'd be in agreement there.
Anything else you want to say about either of these two movies that we didn't hit upon?
I think with I love that, like Zack and Miri, I think was the first time I experienced Elizabeth Banks as an actress.
Yes.
Like I don't remember having any other kind of, like, I know that she was in stuff earlier, but that was the first time I remember seeing something with her in it. And I love that she's gone on to have such a good
Yes.
comedic actress, but also dramatic actress career, because she's fantastic. So yeah, I'm
Oh yeah,
happy that this
absolutely.
film exists, because I think it helped put her on the map, because she definitely
Right.
went on to do a lot of things after this.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Yeah, I enjoy Elizabeth Banks. She's done a lot of fun stuff. I enjoy the Pitch Perfect movies. As you know,
Oh,
as
they're great fun.
they are. I like all three of them. They're just goofy, fun musical comedies. If you can't enjoy that, you know, fine.
Exactly.
But yeah, so all right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online and tell us about your own podcast as well?
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you so much for having me on. I've talked your ear off for a while about these two films, so thank you for giving me a soapbox.
Of
But
course.
yeah, so I'm Bel Morrigan on Twitter and Instagram, and also like my OnlyFans and all those other places. My website is fishnetsandphilosophy.com. That links to everything. So my social platforms, my podcast, which is Fishnets and Philosophy, which I put my stuff up on my website, but also it's everywhere you get podcasts. And yeah, it's a podcast where I talk a lot about kind of horror movies and genre film and stuff like that, but through like a very kind of particular kind of queer and philosophical lens. That's what I like to kind of bring to it. That's what I do with that. And yeah, you can kind of go to my website, fishnetsandphilosophy.com. You'll find everything else from there. But yeah, no, thank you again. And thank you for having me on. It's
Yeah.
been an absolute blast.
Thank you. Yeah, and the listeners definitely go check out Fishnets and Philosophies. I've been on it so far once. I know I've got a second episode coming up.
Yes.
But I was the tail end of the Fishnets and Philosophies Final Destination series. I got to talk Final Destination 5. So that was a lot of fun, and it's definitely a great fun podcast to listen to. I enjoyed listening to everybody else who talked about their Final Destination movies.
And thank
So,
you for listening along.
oh yeah, definitely. I had to hear what everybody else had to talk about and see whether or not I agreed with them, which I did. So, but yeah, no, it's a great fun podcast. Go check it out, and go check out Bel Morrigan over on their social network. It's a lot of fun, and I will have links to all of that in my description.
Oh,
So,
fantastic. Thank you.
thank you again for coming on. We'll have to have you back on again sometime soon.
I will happily come on anytime to talk about anything creepy and geeky. It's up my street. You have a willing returnee. Is
All
that a
right,
word?
that's
I don't know. We'll
awesome.
go with it.
Sounds good to me. Thanks again to Bel for joining me this week. Next episode, Sarah Stubbs returns to talk Tusk and yoga hosers. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more from our TeePublic page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.